bought it, and I understand my Italian is hopeless. I can only speak enough to get into trouble, but I understand that Marcanda means impossible negotiations, and something to do with how many years it took to get everything going. I see it was about 4 years before you and Angela planted at the beginning of the vines. But it's really so cool to see an established house like Gaja to take on a second project, and to see how you guys have steered this to a premium label in its own right. And I'm really excited to taste these wines. So without any more ado, I'm going to hand over to Valentina and ask her just to introduce the winery a little bit, and then we can start drinking. Over to you.
Thank you, Robert, and hello, everybody. And first of all, I would like to thank Robert and Caleb for giving us this opportunity to be with you. I try to introduce you the project of the Gaja family in Bogheri, in Tuscany. But let me 30 seconds to introduce myself. Just to let you know who I am. Robert was too kind, but I joined the winery Camarcanda in July 2002. So that means last July, since last July, I'm 18 years old in Camarcanda, and that's great. I arrived here by chance because I have a completely different background. I took a degree in economics. But since when I started to study, I've always refused to work in a poor economic business. So when I finished university, I looked for a job in different kind of business. And perhaps it was my great wine passion who drove me to look for a job also in the wine business. And I was so lucky to start immediately from the top. I arrived immediately and directly in the Gaja winery, and Camarcanda was a new project. Everything was new, so it was very nice to see the growth of the winery. Even though the Gaja name was already famous everywhere in the world, I saw many changes and all the new projects of the Gaja family here. And I can assure you, it's not so bad to get old with the wine here. Okay. As Robert introduced you, Camarcanda was bought by Angelo Gaja. May I use a few pictures to help my presentation? So I try to. You have to abilitate me to share the screen.
Share the screen? Okay, hold on.
Just to help the presentation. Is just
sure, fantastic. I'll make you the host, and then I'll take it back off you at the end. There we go. And then you should be able to share screen.
Now yeah, thank you.
When?
Okay, Camarcanda. And just to tell you where we are at the moment. You know, Gaja became famous everywhere in the world for the Piedmontese wine, for Barbaresco. And you can see the Italy map. Barbaresco is here in the northwest. And consider that the Barbaresco winery was founded in 1859. So it's a very long time. There are more than 150 years they are making wine. What happened? Why they decided after so many years to move somewhere else? It was Angelo Gaja who started to have this idea at the end of 80s, the beginning of 90s. He wanted to do something new, but he didn't want to increase the quantity of wine produced in Barbaresco. In Barbaresco, we have, and we still have, we had at that time, and we still have the same size, 100 hectares. This is big quantity for Barbaresco, but it is considered the optimal size to maintain the high quality that Gaja would like to maintain. So what doing with this energy he had inside? He decided to invest somewhere else, producing something completely different. And he could choose a place everywhere in the world. He could go to California, to South Africa, to Argentina, wherever. Instead, he decided to stay in Italy. And in Italy, chose Tuscany. It was so simple, because if you talk about red wine in Italy, the first two regions that arrive in your mind are Piedmont. He chose immediately Montalcino and Bogheri. You can see Montalcino is in the internal part of Tuscany. Instead, Bogheri, we are on the coast. So this is, here we have Montalcino, and Bogheri is just in place of the sea. We can clearly see the sea from here. Why these two zones? Montalcino was already famous for Brunello, and Bogheri, thanks to Sassicaia, became famous for red wines. So he arrived immediately in two famous zones, already famous zone. But he started to look for the soil in both areas in the same period, in 1994. But in Montalcino, he was able to buy Pieve Santa Restituta, where we produce Brunello di Montalcino, in almost immediately. It was easier to buy the property. There he bought an existing property. Instead, in Bogheri, it was very hard. Robert introduced you the long negotiations. Marcanda is a Piedmontese dialect. I come from Tuscany, even though I have my grandmother was Piedmontese. It's a local dialect. Only the Langhe people, the people who live around Barbaresco, can understand this dialect. And it means Ca stands for casa, house. Marcanda stands for endless negotiations. So the house of the endless negotiations. Of the endless negotiations. And it was the wife of Mr. Gaja that always repeated him when he came back home, when Angelo Gaja came back home, after the long negotiation with the old owners of this land where we are now, she always said to him, don't go there, that's a Camarcanda, that's a place where you negotiate, but you don't buy the land. So she thought, forget it. Instead, Mr. Gaja insisted to buy what it was, a farm, because in Camarcanda, where we are now, where we have the vineyard, the biggest quantity of the land was a farm, and the owner was a family, only one family, and they grew fruit. We took off a lot of peaches trees, and then vegetables, they had animals, they also had 16 hectares of Vermentino, but they didn't bottle the wine, they didn't have any interest to produce a quality wine. You know, typical farm, not specialized, but they didn't want to sell it. Why? They inherited the land by generation, and the family is still very well known in the region because they have many properties everywhere. They are rich, and their core business is another one. They are contractors. So on one side, they didn't need money. On the other side, they were linked to the land. They simply said no. And why Mr. Gaja insisted to buy a farm? Because of course he knew about the potential of the soil. And of course we are talking about potential. I told you we took off peaches trees and then we planted vineyard. But he knew it thanks to a study that had been done in the Bogheri region at the beginning of 90s. After the success of Sassicaia first, and then the small wine producers that in 80s planted their vineyards like Le Macchiole, Ornellaia, Grattamacco. Ornellaia is not so small, but, and then, you know, Michele Satta. Finally, they decided to scientifically study the soil. And this study was long. It took them 4 years to do it. But at the end of this important study, they individuated 27 different kinds of soil in a narrow stripe of land. You can see this is Bogheri, and Bogheri is this part. This row is the famous Cypresses Road, and all the most important vineyards are, this green side is the hills. We are close from the hills and the sea. So it's a narrow stripe of, and the vineyards are concentrated in this zone. So it's short and narrow. And so in these parts, they individuated 27 different kinds of soil. And they wrote a big book where everything is written on this, about this characteristic. But they resumed this book on a map. And when Angelo Gaja decided to buy the land in Bogheri, he was invited to look at this map. And on the map, they individuated the different characteristics with 27 different colors. So it was many colors there. And Mr. Gaja was standing in front of this map. So he said, okay, thank you for giving me this opportunity, but just standing in front of 27 colors is very difficult for me to choose something. I would like to discuss about this map with some experts, but he said, I have just one question now for you. Tell me, which is the Sassicaia color? and indicated him the Sassicaia vineyard, a yellow stain. So he saw another yellow one and asked him, what is that? Ornellaia. Ah. And another one, Guadaltas, Montanari. Okay, I have decided. Was yellow, you can imagine, of course. This was the reason he insisted to buy the farm. And you know, when Angelo Gaja says something, normally he succeeds in it. In his mind, there was the yellow stain. And so finally, after 2 years, he was able to buy this land. So it was 2 years, and the purchase was at the end of 1996. And at the end of 1998, we started to build the winery. Just a few words about the winery, because it's very difficult to imagine really what Marcanda is, because the architect who projected this winery is Giovanni Bo, and Giovanni Bo, we can say he is the family architect of the Gaja family architect, because he has been working with the Gaja family since 1982. So he was ready, waiting for the purchase. And when finally he was able to buy it, Mr. Gaja brought Giovanni Bo. You can see the green all around the winery. And I don't have a picture but everywhere there is nature, there is green, a local nature. And so he immediately decided he didn't want to ruin the nature with the winery. So we can surely say that he succeeded in it, because the winery, this is the complete winery, but it is 10,000 square meters. If you come here, and I hope you have the chance to come here personally soon, you can't imagine the huge spaces that are inside, because I dug a hole and then I built the winery on 3 levels. 2 of them are completely underground. Here, for example, we have the roof of the barrique cellar, and then this is the roof of the huge room where grapes arrive now during the harvest. This is the roof of the fermentation room. So everything is covered, and covered with grass, land that also helps us to isolate the wine from outside, to maintain the right temperature is also useful. And then he decided you can see the trees all around and over the wineries are century olive trees, are fantastic century olive trees. The old owners in the farm also produce olive oil with these century olive trees, and they weren't here, they were in a land across the road where now we have a vineyard, and it was the architect Giovanni Bo who decided to move them all around the winery. So he created a local scenery with local vegetation, and it's something special. And okay, I can't tell you anything. This is another picture. This is the entrance of the room where grapes arrive, and this is the entrance of the fermentation room. But so I can't say any more about the winery because I wait for you here. So whenever we will come to Italy, whenever the coronavirus will give the chance to travel again, I wait for you. So,
thank you.
But of course, what we have to talk about, we had many changes in any aspect. You know, everything has changed. The first vintage was 2000. And we planted only new vines when we arrived here. The first plant, we started immediately at the beginning of 1997, planting the first 60 hectares of new vines. And the first vintage was 2000, talking about the red wines. And then we planted a few hectares, now we have the double. We have 120 hectares of vineyards. But the goal of Gaja is quality, not quantity. So what we are doing, of course, Mr. Gaja bought what it was supposed to be a wonderful soil. But, you know, when you talk about wine, you need time, you need experience, you need to wait, you must be patient. You know, first, we had to wait till the vineyards get older because they were really young. And then every year you're linked to different weather conditions. And then, you know, there are so many variables that only the time and the experience, the tasting can help you to drive the choice you have to do toward your goal. And the goal is only quality. So we took off a lot of vineyards, and then we planted what we were considered, it wasn't considered good. So, but how we work, the big change we have done, one of the big change we have done in the property and in the vineyards, it's that we became completely organic. That means we don't choose any chemicals. So we didn't write anything on the label. The Gaja family refused to have a label on the bottle and on the body, because there is a huge conviction behind this behavior, and a huge project. That means we have the consulants of entomologists, geologists, that helps us to observe and respect the nature, which is the most important concept. We strongly believe that the best way to take care about our vines is to preserve and to enhance, if it is possible, the biodiversity all around the vineyards. And what does it mean? It means that we have not only grape, but different culture. We want to help the soil to be in balance, to have all the elements they need. But not all the soil are the same. So you have to study, to look, and to change, because if the conditions are changed, you have to change what you use. So talking about the different culture we planted, here you have a picture of leguminous. Leguminous, we have many different kinds of leguminous. I don't know the name of anyone. In this case, we have, for example, one of the most known, very well known, is the Fava Beans, this one. The Fava Beans is, you can see, it's a bit wild, no? It's not so... a kind of leguminous. What the leguminous, which is the function of the leguminous? We normally plant the leguminous in the poor soil. So the leguminous keep nitrogen from the air, and through the roots, they give nitrogen to the soil. So, and then help the roots of the vines to keep the mineral elements. They have organic material, and there is, it's a very important way to help the vines and the soil and the environment in general. Instead, in the rich soil, normally we plant different kinds of cereals, oats, barley, and many other kinds of cereals. And the cereals are very competitive. So they create competition in the soils with the roots of the vines. So at the end, they keep off something. At the end, you have the same results. The soil is in balance, and so you keep also the vigor of the plant controlled, and you know, at the end you have quality. Also you preserve the environment, and everyone, not only us, not only for the wine, but everyone gain something in this. This is a picture of Angelo Gaja. This is just to tell you what we do then. We normally plant during the autumn, the fall, or the winter, these kind of leguminous or cereals. And normally at the end of April, the beginning of May, when they are so high, we cut them. And if the weather conditions are, if we wait, normally, especially in Bogheri, we have the summer normally hot. You never feel it thanks to the winds, but you have a hot temperature and there is a lot of sun, especially, and this is could be a problem. So we do the cover crop. Everybody knows the cover crop. We leave the material cut on the land. So another part of organic material. And if you put your hands, we create a sort of blanket. And if you put your hands below this part of cut material, you can feel it's cool, even though you do it in the middle of August, it's cool and fresh. So the roots of the vines lives in a very nice place. We don't plant only culture, but we plant also flowers. Flower first, they are so wonderful, they are beauty, for the beauty and of the environment. And not only, they also attract what we call the useful insects that can help us to fight the dangerous insect. And another very important thing that we do in the vineyards, it's not so nice this, but they are so important for us. These are red worms. To tell the truth, they are Californian red worms, because the Californian understood they could do a business cultivating this kind of, of worms. What they do for us. We started this project in Barbaresco, and then we brought it and these animals in Montalcino and in Bogheri too. We put them in a mix of manure from local cow, because we want to choose the result of the cow we want to be sure they don't give the antibiotics to the cows, you know? So the result of them is completely natural. So we create this mix with manure, straw, and we create a sort of hill on the ground. We leave them to work. It takes them 1 year, almost 1 year, to transform everything, but they eat everything. They eat the manure and the straw, and sometimes we put also some rest of stems or the skin of the grapes, organic material. And the result of them is a fantastic fertilizer. It doesn't smell of anything, and is absolutely great fertilizer, more natural than this. Is something that the animals do. When they are ready, we keep this material and we spread the material in the middle, in the row, in the middle of the vineyard. So it's a very nice way to, but step by step, we understood how to do and how to improve our method in the vineyards. Introduce this, how to fight the dangerous insects without using chemicals. This is a very nice project. I told you I had a degree in economics, and it's very nice to listen to the entomologists when he arrive here and say, wow, we found a new insect, and it's terrible. Show you the picture, it's something terrible. But it's so important because I told you the first thing that we need is to observe what we have in the vineyards and the behavior of the insect. But because we understood that they don't have the same behavior every year, so we have to have fight them in a different way. After years of observation, here, for example, I give you just two examples to show you there are many insects, but this one of them. On the left side, you can see the scale insect. This tiny, because it's less than one nail, tiny insects is so dangerous, and of course it's a female. The male is not dangerous, the female is terrible. And what does it do? It goes in the vines, in the woods, and eat the life of the vines. So you can throw everything, so it dies. The vines dies. So, and not only, in the meantime, it produces a kind of honeydew full of sugar, so attracts also many dangerous other kind of insects. So huge problem for us. With the entomologists, we selected 2 antagonists. You can see the nice picture. I told you they are terrible, not so nice. The Anagyros and the Cryptolemos. There are 2 different kind of antagonists, because the Anagyros that we normally spread on May is a parasite. What does it mean? The parasite put the eggs in the body of the scaly insects, and at the egg spawn, the scaly insect, we are sad for it, but glad for us, it dies. It's not so nice, amazing dishing, but imagine, so the egg spawn, and it dies. Not only, the Anagyros put the eggs, so it reproduces itself. And so it could be useful to fight other scale insects in the zone. If we have the scale insect, we still have the scale insect in June, the beginning of July, the end of June, the beginning of July, instead we use the Cryptolemos. The Cryptolemos that is huge, is ugly, but is the size is the same family of the ladybug insect, but it's not so nice like the ladybug. If you look at it at the microscope, you can see that it has the peel on the back. It's terrible, but is the predator, is the natural predator of the scale insect. So you throw the Cryptolemus, and it's like to put the mouse in front of the cat. It cuts, he eats the scale insect. So very easy method to fight the most dangerous insects. I wrote here that this year, just to let you to understand how, this year in 2020, we launched almost totally about 5,000 insects between Anagyrus and Cryptolemus. So it's a very nice project and very successful project. Okay, this is another insect. This is a male, easier to fight, okay, like in life. You can see this is a very nice picture that shows you clearly what the problem is now. When the grape is almost ripened because they're full of juice, and he loves the juice of the grape. So he goes there and suckles the juice, and when you arrive, you find a dry grape. In this case, the problem is a bit lower. You have to throw the grape, but you know, for us it's a problem because if it is so spread, you have to throw a lot of things. So what we do, I told you, the male is easier. We don't kill it like the female. We confuse it, and we use an ancient method, the sexual confusion. So, we put in the vineyard a kind of bracelet. If you look at it, it seems a plastic bracelet. Instead, it's an organic material, and but spread a lot of pheromone in the air. The pheromone that normally the female spread in the air, and in a much more quantity than the normal female spread in the air. So the male arrive and smell the female and look for her and never find it, and continue to smell it and never find it. At the end, you can see the picture. It goes away, confused, and without fighting, without suckling the juice of the grape, and without it reproducing itself. So a very nice way, and very without killing it, but just confusing it. But I just told you about two methods, but there is a word behind this this project. And now I prepare a few pictures about the vineyards, because who works in the vineyards? In Bogheri, all our vineyards are on flat land, so we could use machines. Instead, the number of hours worked by hand with the organic increased. Since the beginning, we tried to create a team of people, and they are only local people, not because we have something against the foreigner. This is due to the history of Bogheri, because before Sassicaia, before the wine business, considered that in the zone there was no job. And most of the people who are retired now, they are retired from the steel factory that is not so far from here. And now the steel factory is leaving a huge crisis. But before the huge crisis, a new job arrived, a new opportunity arrived for the people of the zone. So they could choose between the steel factory and the wine business, and most of them prefer to come to work in the wine business. So thanks to this reason, we were able to create a wonderful team. We have 60 people, 60 local people who are working in our vineyards, not only now in the harvest, but during the whole year. We do everything by hand. We, now they have to harvest. At the end of the harvest, a few of them can stop for 1-2 months. And then at the end of December, the beginning of January, we start again cutting. We have the winter, so we have to cut the vines. So 120 hectares by hand, there is a lot of job. From that moment until the harvest, they are busy for the whole year. And the philosophy is to keep people, and to keep people for a long time, so they became experts. They know everything about the vines. Consider the first sign arrive from them. If they see something that for them is strange and not usual, they put a sign in the vineyards, call the agronomist, and the agronomist goes there and to verify if we have to do something different. So it's a very important thing. People. In this picture, you can see women, because we have most of them are women. So we have I'm not feminist. We have male and men and women, but a lot of them, and only local. And
Valentina, I wonder if I could interrupt just for a second. We have some people who are moving on to dinners just before 8 o'clock. So could we possibly, this is so fascinating, but could we move on to the wines at this stage?
Yeah, you're ready.
Thank you so much. I suggest to everybody we start with the MARE, if that's okay for you.
Yeah. Sorry, but I have to pour the wine.
No problem.
You have the 2017?
Yep.
Okay.
So just my notes when I was working through listening to you was a really ripe kind of green melon, and then loads of different citrus, lime and again lemon, and then there's beautiful, especially when it was very cold, really beautiful crunchy minerality that just jumps out and seems to. There's a beautiful line of it that seems to go all the way through the wine to the end, which really presents well. I don't know what your thoughts are on the phenolics.
Thank you, Robert. Instead, I introduced you the VISTA MARE was the only white wine we produce in Marcanda. And while we started to produce PROMIS, Magari, and Marcanda, the first vintage for the 3 red wines was 2000. We started to produce VISTA MARE only in 2009. Because Gaja at the beginning refused the idea to produce a white wine in Bogheri. Because if you talk about Bogheri, you never normally think to red wines, especially in the past, but the red wines are the king of the Bogheri zone. But in the last years, and we started many years ago, the challenge was to find the right varieties in the right soil, with the right work in the vineyards and in the cellar. So there was a huge experimentation. We planted at the beginning 14 different varieties in different kind of soil. We could talk about micro-vinification. After many years of experimentation, finally, in 2009, we exited with the first vintage of VISTA MARE, and the production was tiny, and the blend was different, because now the blend, what you have in your glass is Vermentino mainly, and then we have around 40% of Viognier, and 15% if in this case is 10-15% of Fiano. In the past, it was Vermentino and Viognier mainly. And at the beginning, we had also Chardonnay. But we arrived, the Vermentino and Viognier, but the 2017 that you have in your glass was the first year in which we introduced Fiano. I don't know if you know the Fiano di Avellino. Fiano di Avellino is an Italian variety typical of Campania. Campania is the region of Naples in the south of Italy, in the internal part of the Campania. So it is a variety that is used to grow in a dry and hot climate. So we wanted to try it, and we did some experiments. And finally, we decided to use it. And it was very nice, because 2017, everybody remember this year, because we have 2 opposite year vintage, 2017 and 2018. The 2017 was in the winter was absolutely dry and not so cold, and the spring was dry. Then we had a few rain at the beginning of August that dropped the temperature, was very good. But the result of this year was very nice, because it's we can call concentration, but it's a positive concentration, not concentration in the meaning of powerful. It's a concentration of everything. Then we have the chance to taste also the red wines, and there was also for us, wow, we were astonished about the high acidity, and so different from the other years, also for the PROMIS that normally is approachable, we had to wait a few months more to start to appreciate the wine. So, and talking about the white, the Fiano in 2017 was in perfect condition. The Fiano has a grape, has a thick skin, and it was so, it seems to be, wow, these are the optimal condition for Fiano. And what did the Vermentino is a local variety, typical of the zone, and normally gives the perfumes, but it's normally short. It doesn't, stay in your mouth for a long time. So the Viognier give a bit of structure, and the Fiano, it's a paradox, but give the freshness and the acidity. So
do I have it right that you treat the Vermentino in two ways, partly oak, partly stainless steel, and apparently that's your direction for that is to avoid any kind of flabbiness from the fruit? Is that?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Do I have it correctly that you treat the Vermentino in two ways, stainless steel and oak?
Yeah, no, at the moment, the Vermentino, at the beginning, we tried to do that. The Vermentino was, when we were doing the experiments, we tried to do 2 different time of the harvest of the Vermentino, depending it was face on north or south. So we started from the south face Vermentino, and then on the north face. And then we had some experiment talking about the aging. We tried to age it a bit in tonneau, in 500 liters wood, and a part in stainless steel. But at the moment, we absolutely arrived at the Fiano and Vermentino aged only in stainless steel tanks. Yeah, and instead, Viognier is the only one who aged for 2-3 months, not more, in tonneau. And that's it. And then we do the blend, and we bottle the wine, and a few months is easy. This is...
Certainly that crunchiness is beautiful. It really makes me want to start eating shellfish and all kinds of things. It has a wonderful component to it, this sort of crunchy, coarse kind of flavor, texture.
It was successful. Gaja at the beginning didn't want to produce the white wine, but now, even though he never says anything, I think it is proud. He is proud.
So it's actually interesting because I always wondered about Gaja's Chardonnay as well. Where did that come in the history of Gaja in Tuscany? Was that something that came later?
What?
The Gaja Chardonnay, was that also something that came later? And Angelo wasn't that keen to have it?
No, this was one of the reasons he didn't want to do that, because, you know, if you talk about Gaja Rey is Gaja Rey, you know?
Yeah.
It's something special, but, you know, Gaja Rey is produced in Piedmont. It's produced in a different soil, different, especially different climate, different altitude. Here, all the lines are from 40 until 75 meters above the sea level. So it's different
guns, yeah.
To compare it, and you know, Gaja Rey is unique, and I think is the success of Gaja Rey is the uniqueness.
Yeah.
Not only, you know, that the problem every year is there is not too many bottles for everyone, for Gaja Rey, but it's important. It's really important to maintain the size of the vineyards, because I told you Gaja Rey is Gaja Rey because it's on that we were lucky.
Yeah,
you know, the microclimate, everything is unique, so you can't enlarge the production. It won't be Gaja Rey. So, you know, Gaja Rey is dedicated to her, to the daughter, Gaja.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Clotilde Rey. So I poured the drink, so it's easier.
The Promise? Okay. I have to say, Valentina, the Promise is so expressive on opening the bottles, and it's retained that kind of rich plum, exotic kind of ripeness to it that's just beautiful. I've been following Promise for a number of vintages now, maybe 6 or 7 years, and it just seems to be on this great incline of quality, and that, I guess, is all about vine maturation. We're actually seeing it evolve year by year at this stage.
See, I told you that normally Promise is we can say the entry-level wine. It's very difficult for me to talk about entry-level wine with the Gaja wines, but it's the first wine, you know, it's the first level, and it's so successful, now we can say it, but thanks to the approachability. This is the characteristic that every year the Promise has. It's approachable, it's easy to drink, you can drink it like an aperitif, you can drink it during your dinner, you can drink, you know, it's always so appreciable that, and not only, we sell a lot of Promise by the glass everywhere in the world, because even though the price of Promise is not so, normally the wine bar, at the wine bar, we use a more economic wine, more cheaper wine to pour it by the glass. But even though you ask a bit more for a glass of Promise, normally you have to open a new bottle because the person who tastes the wine suggests the wine to the others because of the approachability. This is characteristic of Promise. Even though 2007, as I told you before, was the year, now no, because now we are in 2020, but at the beginning when we started to taste it, it was wow. It needed a bit more time to reach this approachability.
It's interesting because I'm not sure all the vintages do that. It's quite interesting because some of the other ones are ready to go straight away, whereas with this particular vintage, there's a sense of gravitas and it's kind of eased its way to fruition. It's showing that unmistakable gloss and swagger that all of Gaja's red somehow translates. It's wonderful to see that style, even from this approachable price point, to see how the style plays through.
Thanks, Robert. I'm glad you introduced an important concept. What I normally say to people is it's impossible to compare the Marcanda wines with the Barbaresco wines made with Nebbiolo or with Brunello di Montalcino made in Sangiovese in another zone. But what is the key of all the wines of Gaja is the Gaja, what I call the Gaja style. And what does it mean? It means that elegance, drinkability, in all the wines with their own characteristics, but this is what we look for. And, you know, to having in our mind this goal, we work hard in the vineyards and in the winery to produce wines that are easy to drink with their important personality, but with the pleasure. They must be pleasant in your palate. The blend of Promise is the same since the beginning. It's an unusual blend because it has mainly Merlot. In this case, it's 55% of Merlot, 35% of Syrah, and 10% is Sangiovese. It's the only one in which these varieties now are.
There's a sense of harmony in the wine. You know, you get this opulence from the Merlot, and the structure of the Syrah is there, but it's so seamlessly integrated. It's very clever wine, and I have a feeling that in terms of the wine sales tonight, I'll be going back to Caleb and digging in for some more allocation of this. It's showing really wonderfully, and it's gorgeous now. It's something, you know, in Singapore we always look for wines of quality that we can drink soon because there's no damn space to store anything, and this is something which really can be looked at straight away. It's wonderful. Thank you.
In the meantime, report the Magari.
I think the big change in phenolics and flavor base for me from the Promise to the to Magari is spice. It seems to be really showing a lot of the Magari. There seems to be, for me, a lot more spice on the nose. Lot more aggression. I was looking at that map that you showed us earlier. It seems that the Promise is from 3 very different vineyards, quite spread around, whereas the Magari is quite a close concentration.
I show you again. I try to find. Just a moment. I have to interrupt it to arrive to the. No, sorry. It was this.
I was quite keen to know for the Promise, those 3 vineyards, obviously the 3 varietals, and they're in very different places.
Here you are. The blue, you saw it. The blue in part are in Bibona, and the blue are a bit closer to the sea. So there is a bit more sand, not a lot in person, but they are full of clay. So the most important element is clay. They are compact soil that retain water, and there is a bit of sand too. Instead, going toward the hills, you can see the orange is Magari and the red is Marcanda. Also, the color of the soil changes because in the whole winery we have 2 kinds of soil. One is dark, is the Promise soil that normally gives us the wines immediately show the perfumes. They are not so shy, and they are rounder. They are easier to drink. Instead, the white soil is rich in limestone, so the part of the percentage of sand is substituted by the limestone, and there are stones inside. And for example, Camarcanda is made only with the grape from white soil, so they are full at the beginning. The perfumes are almost nothing, is shy, but if you taste it, you say the great texture and the elegance, the verticality. And Magari is a mix of the two soil. So it's a mix of dark and white soil.
What's really appealing, Valentina, is you don't get a sense of overt alcohol. Everything, again, is in balance. I guess that's the key word when it comes to organic growing of every kind. There's definitely fresh ripeness. One of the comments that one of the wine critics said was, the real genius for you for the Magari in this vintage was a very hot year, but getting the very best out of the fruit and the vibrancy of the fruit, but none of the negative attributes of an overly hot vintage. That it really came down to very smart winemaking to produce this style.
I have Magari now in my glass.
Yep.
Okay, first of all, something about the name, because it's, I don't know if you know the meaning of Magari. If you come to Italy, everywhere you go, everywhere you will hear many times a day, several times a day, the expression Magari. Magari means many things, means, it's very difficult. So if only we wish, when you don't know something about the future, but you wish it will happen, you say Magari. So perhaps it's the word that Mr. Gaja pronounced most when he arrived here in the zone. 2 years of negotiation, he thought, Magari, I'm able to buy the land. When he bought it, he thought, Magari, I'm able to produce a high quality wine in Bogheri too. Magari. So at the end, the name came without thinking, Magari, for the most representative wine. Another important thing, Magari, he is the flagship wine of Camarcanda, of the Camarcanda winery, because it is a PROMIS, Magari, and Camarcanda is the top. But the production of Camarcanda is limited, so we can consider it the most representative wine of Camarcanda. It is Magari. In fact, the label is black and white, something that reminds the Gaja traditional label. Just introducing the label a bit while you are not tasting. The origin of the label. On the left in this picture, you have a picture of the famous road to get to Bogheri. If you ever come to Bogheri, you have to run this, at the end of this road, straight road for 5 kilometers. At the end, you find the village of Bogheri. And along this road, there are 2,500 cypresses. It's a wonderful road. And if you look at the horizon, can you see the two triangles of the label? This was the origin, the inspiration for Gaja. Then the goal of them was to create another label like the Gaja traditional label, sober, very easy to be recognized. These labels, on the right side, the labels of the Camarcanda wines, if you put them in the middle of 1 million bottles on the shelves, you can immediately so when Gaja enter, wow, you don't have it. And Magari, now we have 2017. 2017 is, we already changed we had a big change for the Magari and Camarcanda blend. The first vintage was 2015. We have the chance to taste the Camarcanda 2015. Was the first year in which we completely eliminate Merlot from the blend. Consider that in the past, from 2000 until 2014, Magari, both Magari and Camarcanda have had 50% of Merlot in their blend, and then different percentage of Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet Franc. And then we decided to take off completely. Why? after many years in which we were tasting more and more outstanding Cabernet Franc, and not so many outstanding Merlot like in the past, we finally decided to invert the quantity of them first in the vineyard. Because at the beginning, we planted mainly Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon, and then a smaller quantity of Cabernet Franc, smaller than Syrah, and just a few hectares of Sangiovese. After, when we understood that perhaps it was better, we inverted the quantity of Merlot and Cabernet Franc. So now we have mainly Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet Franc in the vineyard. We still have very nice and wonderful Merlot, but we decided to, for the kind of, for the style for Magari and Marcanda we had in our mind, we decided to eliminate Merlot. So now Magari is mainly Cabernet Franc because it's 60 Cabernet Franc, 30 Cabernet Sauvignon, and then there is 10% of Petit Verdot.
There's a wonderful regal structure to the wine. It's definitely going from PROMIS to Magari is a natural evolution, that a beautiful structure and form to the wine. Coming from South Africa, Cabernet Franc has always been one of my favorite grapes, and it's such an incredibly hard grape to get the best out of, and I think you guys have achieved that and then some. It's wonderful, and it really backed up with the beauty of Cabernet, the perfume beauty of Cabernet. It's just a wonderful blend.
We believe a lot almost in the last years, and then nobody knows if in the future we had to change again.
Because, sure. It's life.
The Merlot suffer a bit more, you know, the Merlot is a variety that ripened earlier. I told you before that we start with Merlot at the beginning of September and we had the Cabernet Sauvignon at the beginning of October. So there is a big difference, and suffer a bit more about the peak of temperature. So when the sugar goes up, the alcohol goes up and give you too powerful wine sometimes, even though it's very nice because it helps you to let the wine to be rounder and so on, but very difficult to manage. So
I think the real win for me in the Magari is this glossy tannin. It's like this beautiful burnished high gloss on the tannins. It's really gorgeous now, but you have the certainty that in time that wine has got so much more to give you. It's really awesome.
If you're ready, we can move to Marcanda.
Sure. Yeah, let's do that. So what I saw was it's much more limestone where the Marcanda is relative to the rest of the vineyards. And in fact,
Marcanda is only the grape of Marcanda are the vineyards closest to the yields, and they are white. They are full of limestone and stone. They are only white. While I told you, Magari is a mix of grape on white and dark haired. Instead, Marcanda is grape are made with grape that are only on white soil, so rich in limestone. As I told you before, you need more time to appreciate the wine. In fact, Marcanda has the longest aging. It ages for 18 months in wood, and I say wood because we have barrique and tonneau, both. Different size, I mean 225 liters against 500 liters. And then after this period, it ages for 18 months, normally is 18 months in bottle. And then we start the sales, and when we start the sales, if you wait 2-3 years, it's better and better. Yeah,
it's just kind of peeping out in terms of where it's heading. It's still very muted, but you can see the DNA is wonderful. It's I had mine open for 2 hours, and it's just, you know, I pre-decanted everything for everyone tonight, and it's just waking up. In fact, if anybody has any left at the end of the night, I would save this one and keep going back to it because it's getting better and better in the bigger glass.
I love it. Okay.
So,
Marcanda?
Yeah.
No, tell me what you were talking.
I was going to ask if anyone had any questions to ask of you at this stage. I know that there was one that came from somebody earlier about the white wine. Was it all Bogheri varietal, or is I understand that you have some Livorno vineyard as well, and do you draw off the Livorno vineyard for the MARE?
So you mean if we want to add more white, or?
Yeah, there's a question from someone in the chat room that about that. I didn't know you had vineyards in Livorno.
There is, okay, our first goal is to improve the quality of the wine we are producing. We don't have any intention at the moment. We don't have any intention to act with the new labels different. Even though our winemaker is that would like to do something different, another wine. He told that we are ready to do that, but Gaja, the Gaja philosophy is to improve. Right. It's very nice because I grow with Angela especially, and also with the children now, have the same philosophy. They put the goal here. When you are close to the goal, you are reaching it. Yeah, you are closer and closer, and then the goal goes up. And then
it sounds like my sales budgets are exactly the same. Just what I think I'm inside.
We don't know about the future, but I'm sure, because with Gaja you can't be wrong. I'm sure that what we want to do is to improve the quality in general. We will do something new if we are sure, that means years, that that product could be at least at the level, quality level we put. This is what we drive us normally. So at the moment, no, there is any project. These are the 4 wines, any other project.
Okay. Another question was the ideal age for the Marcanda. It's going to be a long time.
Yeah. This morning I answered the question about the Marcanda 2000. Marcanda 2000 is now at perhaps at the, consider that was the first vintage with young vines. So now perhaps reach the top and start to be down, but 2001, but sometimes you find some bottles that are great, still great. And we are sure that the new vintages, the younger, the latest vintages, surely will have a longer potential aging, because the roots of the vineyards are deeper, because the vines in general are older, and the potential aging, we don't have any experience like in Piedmont. In Piedmont, we have a room that is called the heaven, because of the paradise, because there you have all the old vintages from 30s, I tasted some 60s, 70s, 80s. They have a long history. For us, everything is new. Now we start to have more than 20 years old, also for the talking about the vintages. So, but we have to see, and especially with the new age of the vineyards, we change how we work in the vineyards. So we are very proud about the aging of the wine. Also the PROMIS. We found that some PROMIS, that is normally the wine that is better to drink when it's young. If you forget a bottle in your cellar because you forget it,
it's going to be okay.
We tasted yesterday a PROMIS 2003. Was 2002 was a hot vintage. Normally the acidity is lower. Normally the potential aging is shorter. Instead was great. So of course, PROMIS is not the one that could age. Normally I prefer to drink it when it's so fresh. But we are at the moment we are proud about the aging. Marcanda surely 15 years, perhaps also 20 years without any problem.
Another question. With the younger vines, do you do a green harvest? Now, I don't even know what a green harvest is all about, so maybe you can help us with that.
The green harvest is when you cut the grapes in along the vineyards. When you have the green grapes in the vineyards, you cut them to let the plant to work just on to concentrate only on the grape. It was a new thing, and was a revolution in the past, because in the past, of course, quantity was the first, and it seems to waste fruit. But here we have to take care, to be careful, really careful, because it depends on the weather. There is any fixed rule, because, for example, this year we did a part of the of the green harvest. We cut a part of the grapes, but not in the whole property, not in all our vineyards, just in a few of them, just looking at the vineyards. You know, it's something, it's like to have different people and you, okay, you are hot, okay, I bring you.
Different personalities, yeah, I understand.
No, but we must be careful because otherwise the concentration could be too high. So normally we keep the less than 1 kilo for vines, but the goal is to have the planting balance. And not, you know, in Abruzzo, Valentina with a lot of grapes. So the importance is to have the planting balance. So you have to judge vineyards for vineyards and year per year.
Any other questions from the floor before we? Yep.
Robert, Logan, just a quick question on the white. I mean, what is the aging potential for that?
Okay, it's not okay. Our winemaking. My winemaker comes from Friuli and told me, okay, I can't do miracle. We are in Tuscany. We changed a lot the white. So 4 or 6 years, perhaps without any problem. But of course, the white wines are normally, and these white, not like Gaja raise, the Piedmont is white wine from Gaja or something different. An exception, but talking about the Tuscan white wines, normally it's better to drink like within 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
There are some exceptions because we tasted the VISTA MARE 2012 and it was great. So very difficult to judge, but if you have a bottle, you can contact me. I can tell you, okay, we opened it. We are glad to do that. Sometimes we open some old vintage to experiment, to see.
Yeah, of course. I know that a couple of years ago, I tasted Sauvignon Blanc has always been something in the New World that you drink as quickly as possible, right? You know, the minute in the bottle. And we were with some winemakers a few years ago in Marlborough, and he said to us, I apologize if I'm boring the people who are watching because I was talking about it last week. He said, and now we're going to do an 8-year retrospective of our Sauvignon Blanc. And I thought, oh, madre, there's no way I'm going to cope. But it was really interesting how incredible those wines really were. It was something that I would never have given consequence.
Now consider that we find some differences between the bottles in the same box sometimes. Yeah. So the wine is something alive and something, you know, is a leaf. And
there was a question in the chat room about the way you delineating Merlot away and whether it's a function of global warming. I think you probably answered that a little bit earlier, that really you're just listening to your vineyard and whatever fruit tells you is best, you're adapting to that, I guess, would be.
But the question was why, or the question was why we took
the question is the fact that you're removing Merlot from the Magari, for example, the blend. Is that a function of global warming, or is it just a subjective decision that you make?
Yeah, just, I told you, just drinking the wine, but perhaps nobody can explain and can be sure that the main cause was the global warming. Surely the global warming could have an effect on the different condition of Merlot and characteristics of Merlot. And for example, 2014, Merlot was wonderful. It's the only year in which it was an unusual vintage for us, an unusual summer, because and was an extreme, because in 2014 we had a lot of rain. Consider that in July here in Bogheri we have 20 days of rain, so something that nobody can remember. You could wear without your shoulder must be covered because it was cold. Yeah, so something wrong, nobody. So the ripening of Merlot was perfect. Instead, Cabernet Sauvignon was awful because we left the Cabernet Sauvignon directly on the plant. So that was an extreme, but normally the tendency in the last years is that, okay, if you leave the Merlot there, the alcohol could reach 17 degrees.
Oh,
so
yeah, great. Yeah.
so the sugar goes up immediately. Just one day, 2 days of peak of temperature, and the alcohol goes up, and it's too heavy and too. But I told you we have some exception. You know, in the zone we have Maceto that is an example. He's 100%
Exactly. Yeah.
But we are talking about that particular vineyard in that particular microclimate. And talking with our winemaker, he is convinced that we could do a Macetino because
definitely.
in some vineyards, also our Merlot are fantastic, but we don't have them in quantity, and so you know, it's not. We can't say this is right and this is wrong. It's just because I told you the reason we did it. Just tasting our wines, and there are many differences between one parcel and the parcel close to it. So.
Hey, Valentina, sorry, just ask one more question. I love the fact that you just don't shy away from changing a mix of grape. I think it's fantastic to make sure you harvest the best what Bogheri has to offer.
Yeah, it's really
if you have one choice and can experiment with one more grape, you would love to try something in Bogheri, what would that be?
Wow. Okay, you know, surely we understood that Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Cabernet Franc are the best grapes. In the last years, Cabernet Franc is raising a lot. Everyone understood that Cabernet Franc, but we are linked to the weather. So perhaps now we are talking about wonderful and more outstanding Cabernet Franc. We understood that we must be careful. So at the moment could be a more concentration on Cabernet Franc, but the same variety we have at the moment, even though we experiment also different kinds of varieties. But sure, you know how long Mario and Cesare Rocchetta needed to demonstrate that Cabernet was the right varieties here. You know,
forever, right? Yeah, forever.
Sassicaia is mainly with Cabernet Sauvignon, no? And Mario and Cesare Rocchetta planted the first hectare of Cabernet Sauvignon in 1944. Do you know which is the first vintage of Sassicaia? It was 1968. For 24 years, 24 years. Praising them. And so, okay, now perhaps we are a bit more ready to accept a new kind of varieties, but as I told you, our philosophy is to try. Of course, we have some experimentation, but we are focused on what we have, and especially on how we can help the vines, the vineyards, to give us a higher quality. So, and there is we are proud about the results because the vineyards are becoming more and more resilient, resistant to the illness, and also the quality is raising, and also us, we need more and more. So we want to focus on what we have, and of course, the Gaia philosophy is doubt. You start to do something, and he says, "Okay, are you sure it is good?" You arrive to that solution after years of experimentation, studies, contact with people who are expert in everything, and then, are you sure? I'm not sure. I think there is something different that could work better than what I'm doing now. So this is how we move everywhere, in the vineyards, in the winery. So also to choose the varieties, this is the philosophy, is we taste, and we taste also the wines of the others. It's absolutely important. Understand the potential. We do many interesting tasting, and
so when you do a tasting and you're looking to California and maybe South Africa or Australia, what sort of labels do you put in a blind lineup against what you are making?
It depends. It depends on who organized the tasting. Normally our blind tastings are fabulous. And okay, no, normally the focus is on the, for example, last year, because we normally do it big tasting every 1-2 years, different subject. Last year we did a huge tasting of Barbaresco, Barolo, and Bolgheri and our zones and Montalcino. And the blind tasting, you know, is fabulous. I was present, and then there was the agronomist of the 3 wineries, the winemakers of the 3 wineries, and of course the Gaja family. And the winemakers are the best because they don't tell anything, because our wines are in the middle, and they are
so you
afraid.
need to be quiet.
I can't say anything because sometimes, you know. But it's very interesting because first you can taste without thinking to the label, without knowing what you are tasting. You are completely free also on your wines. And at the end, the discussion is really constructive and interesting because at the end you have clearer and clearer what you want. What is wrong for you is not wrong, absolutely, but for you, what you would like to reach, and perhaps it's another one. Okay, this is very good. We want to understand how we can reach this new goal, and so of course we do also some tasting about the worldwide wine. You know that in Italy we are importers, and we import wines from all over the world with the Gaja distribution company. So we have the chance to taste many different wines, also to select the wine to insert in the portfolio like you do for. And it's very interesting, but they are completely different we can't compare our wines with these wines. We can compare the style. Yeah, this is important also to understand in this case, and also understand how the tendency in the world about wine.
All right. And any more questions from anybody before we say goodbye to Valentina? Valentina, can you make me host again so I can keep the recording and send it out to everybody?
Yes, of course.
Grazie.
Prego, bravo.
That's all I got. That's all I've got. So any more questions from anybody? It sounds like that's it. So Valentina, thank you so much for tonight. It was wonderful. Really appreciate it. Please come back and visit us at the next vintage release. We'll talk to Caleb at Pinnacle about that. It would be fantastic to have you here again.
Thank you. I hope to do soon.
Thank you so much, Valentina. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Valentina.
Thanks so much. Stay safe.
You too. And
cheers. Bye-bye.
High quality wine is
always the best.
That's it.
Save us.
And Robert, you need to make the tasting portions double the size next time, please.
I can do that, Tim. I know people.
You know us. Thanks, Valentina. Say bye. Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, cheers. Ciao.
Valentina, can you transfer me and make me the host again? So the host, can you make me the host so that I can save the recording? Yes, just a moment. How to do that? I think you just, as the host, you just make me, Robert Rees, as I made you the host earlier. You drop down the little box. Yeah, I try to look for it. Controller. Okay. Normally use another. It was so great having the pictures of the vineyard. That really explained things a lot. It was awesome. What's the distance from the mountains to the ocean? It's about 10 kilometers. Is that right? Well, yes, less than 10 by air is less than 10 kilometers. It's 3-4 kilometers. Yeah, I told you, it's really, if you come here, you can see it. Tiny, yeah. So you're getting all that wonderful maritime influence of irrigation. It's fantastic. Yeah, I understand how to say indeed. No, indeed. I can't understand. Sorry, I'm not so used to use it. Oh, it's okay.
Valentina, if you open up the participants list and then you scroll to Robert's name, I think you can right click or just click on it and change him to host. Robert? And then right click.
Consente registrazione. It's done?
No.
Maybe just click on him and then just
record. I allow you to record.
No. You must make me the host so that I can pick up the recording. If you right click on your machine, you'll be able to do that.
Vuoi cambiare l'ordine? Sì. Now?
Yep.
Bene.
Sorry.
Touchdown. Thanks so much, Valentina. It was fantastic. Thanks, Caleb. I appreciate it.
Cheers, buddy. Have a good
It was
weekend.
Thank you. Where is Lisa?
Enjoy your weekend.
Not off the bed now. She's sleeping.
He drank.
Sleeping.
Sleep.
Finally. Yeah. Thank you so
It's
much. man.
fantastic.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. See you. Have a good weekend.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So, Caleb, you having more, or is that it? More children, or are you done?
I'm done, man. Food is plenty, especially in Singapore.
Yeah, I remember talking to you on the phone on sort of lockdown, like day 5 or something.
Yeah.
And you said, oh, it's lockdown and family. If you just said to me, I'm having a fucking baby, I would have been
Self-explanatory. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
That happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't sleep
sure.
for months. Yeah.
Sure. All my friends who have kids say the same thing. It's like no sleep for like 5 years. It's crazy. And then they turn 13 and then you can't sleep again for another 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. Cool then. All right. Cheers, mate. See ya. Bye-bye.
Ciao. Thanks.
Ciao. Bye-bye. Thank
Ciao,
you very much.
Valentina.
Ciao.
Oh,